Our first speaker will be Kathleen Murphey on the masculine and feminine sides of Hagrid, one of Harry's mentors and a rare survivor.
So I'm really just doing a close reading of the text, and I have, they're slides that sort of correspond, but they're not, well, you'll see. Oh, sure, sorry. In the Harry Potter series of 7 novels, it is Rubeus Hagrid who brings the infant Harry Potter to Professor Dumbledore to be left with the Dursleys at 4 Privet Drive and Little Whinging. It is Hagrid who finally delivers Harry's Hogwarts letter of acceptance to the hut on the rock at the sea. It is Hagrid who takes Harry from 4 Privet Drive to the safe house at the start of the last novel. Hagrid, as a half-giant, is a fierce and formidable force. However, Hagrid is also a very maternal figure to Hagrid and to others. His quote-unquote monster fetish means that Hagrid sends Norbert, the baby dragon, off with rats, brandy, and a teddy bear. He bakes and knits and frequently uses his pink umbrella, in which his broken wand is concealed. Hagrid is an important mentor to Harry, and given that Harry loses his parents, Sirius, Dumbledore, the Dursleys, Hedwig, Dobby, his wand, Remus, and Fred, Hagrid is one of the few mentors, companions Harry has left at the end of the 7th and final novel. His friendship is vital throughout, and his specific qualities, personal as well as physical, endear him to readers as well as to Harry. Physically, Hagrid is very different from wizards and witches around him in the wizarding world. J.K. Rowling first describes him to readers with these words, quote, "If the motorbike was huge, it was nothing to the man sitting astride it. He was almost twice as tall as a normal man and at least 5 times as wide. He looked simply too big to be allowed, and so wild, long tangles of bushy black hair and beard hid most of his face. He had hands the size of dustbin lids, and his feet in their leather boots were like baby dolphins," end quote. Readers find out in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire that the reason Hagrid is so huge is because his mother was a giantess, before Rita Skeeter publishes the information to the wizarding world. Harry, being raised by the Muggle Dursleys, doesn't understand the significance of Hagrid's revelation to Madame Maxine that he is half-giant, which he and Ron accidentally overhear. Ron repeats the wizarding world's ideas about giants to Harry. Quote, "They're just vicious, giants. They just like killing. Everyone knows that," end quote. And which Rita Skeeter repeats in her article, Dumbledore's Giant Mistake. Skeeter calls giants, quote, "bloodthirsty and brutal," end quote, characteristics she links to Hagrid, having inherited them, according to Skeeter, from his mother. Despite Skeeter's claims, readers know very well by the 4th novel that Hagrid is mostly a kind and loyal individual. At the start of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Dumbledore has entrusted Hagrid with the task of retrieving Harry from the ruined house in Godric's Hollow and bringing him to number 4 Privet Drive to live with his mother, Lily Potter's sister, and her family, the Dursleys. When Professor McGonagall questions the wisdom of this decision, Dumbledore replies simply, quote, "I would trust Hagrid with my life," end quote. When Hagrid, Dumbledore, and McGonagall take their leave of Harry, only a small bundle with a letter left on the doorstep, it is Hagrid who is most emotional. Quote, "Hagrid bent his great scraggy head over Harry and gave him what must have been a great scratchy, whiskery kiss. Then suddenly Hagrid let out a howl like a wounded dog," end quote. Thus, at the start of the series, Hagrid's 2 natures, as fierce and maternal, show themselves. Hagrid, of all the people who Dumbledore could draw on to get Harry from the scene of his parents' murders and his own attempted murder, so Hogwarts staff or the Order of the Phoenix, Hagrid is the one Dumbledore entrusts for this special and important task. Dumbledore repeatedly entrusts Hagrid with special tasks. In the 1st novel, Hagrid delivers Harry's letter of acceptance to Hogwarts and escorts Harry to Diagon Alley to get his Hogwarts school supplies. Hagrid retrieves the Philosopher's Stone from Gringotts. Hagrid, the keeper of keys and grounds, adds the protection of Fluffy the three-headed dog, to the protections guarding the stone. It should be noted that all the other protections are given by professors of magic at the school. I'm just going to skip that part. I was going to identify them, but you already know that. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, with Voldemort back and rising in power, Harry is provided security for his trip to Diagon Alley to get school supplies. Instead of Aurors, Hagrid is sent. Quote, the ministry wanted to send a bunch of Aurors, but Dumbledore said I'd do, end quote. Further, in Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix, after Voldemort has returned, Dumbledore sends Hagrid, accompanied by Madame Maxine, to talk to the Giants to try and get them on their side for the upcoming Wizarding War. Also, Hagrid's half-giant status seems to protect him from typical wizarding magic. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, when High Inquisitor Umbridge and a group of Aurors attempt to sneak up on Hagrid in the middle of the night, their stunning spells do not work on him. Hagrid is seen as, quote, a massive brandishing his fists, surrounded by 6 people, all of whom, judging from the tiny threads of red light were casting in his direction, seemed to be attempting to stun him, end quote. By sheer physical strength, and of course his massive size, Hagrid knocks out at least half of his attackers and charges with the unconscious Fang from the Hogwarts grounds, while poor Professor McGonagall is hit by 4 stunning spells and knocked out, needing to be transferred to St. Mogo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries for further treatment than Madame Pomfrey can provide at Hogwarts. Similarly, in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Harry sees Death Eaters attempting and failing to curse Hagrid. Quote, he saw the vast outline of Hagrid, illuminated by the light of the crescent moon, revealed suddenly from behind the clouds. The blonde Death Eater was aiming curse after curse at the gamekeeper, but Hagrid's immense strength and his toughened skin he had inherited from his giantess mother seemed to be protecting him, end quote. This is not the only instance where Hagrid's immunity is beneficial. Though Hagrid's nature is mainly gentle, he can be fierce when he needs to be, which is the main reason that Dumbledore entrusts him with important tasks, as previously described. Hagrid was an original member of the Order of the Phoenix, along with Lily and James Potter, Sirius Black, Alistair Moody, among others, when they first organized to fight against old Voldemort. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, when Umbridge and the Aurors attempt to sneak up and subdue Hagrid, they knock Fang unconscious, and as the dog is trying to protect Hagrid. Quote, Hagrid gave a howl of fury, lifted the culprit bodily from the ground, and threw him. The man flew what looked like 10 feet and did not get up again. Hermione gasped, both hands over her mouth. Harry looked around at Ron and saw that he too was looking scared. None of them had ever seen Hagrid in a real temper before, end quote. And yet Hagrid is unable to use magic most of the time due to being expelled from Hogwarts when Tom Riddle frames him for opening the Chamber of Secret and his wand was broken. Thus, in terms of fighting, Hagrid really has no choice but to be physical, and his size and giant blood make him a formidable fighter. Hagrid's size and giant heritage make him sympathetic to other creatures whom wizards and witches dismiss as dangerous. So a herd of centaurs live in the Forbidden Forest. Firenze, one of the centaurs, agrees to teach centaur divination at Hogwarts for Dumbledore and Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and the centaurs see this as abject betrayal. It is revealed that the centaurs attacked Firenze for this betrayal and were stopped from killing him because Hagrid intervened. Only Hagrid and Dumbledore seem fierce enough to confront an angry herd of centaurs. You'll remember that Dumbledore is able to retrieve Umbridge when she's abducted. Later in the novel, the centaurs try to remind Hagrid that since he helped Firenze, he is unwelcome in the Forbidden Forest. But Hagrid will not accept such restrictions and tells them angrily, quote, I won't be kept out of the forest by a bunch of old mules like you, end quote. Very few people or creatures stand up to centaurs, and Hagrid refuses to be cowed by them. Further, Hagrid is a very loyal person as well, and one of the people he is most loyal to is Albus Dumbledore, who allowed Hagrid to stay on at Hogwarts after he was expelled as the keeper of keys and grounds, and who made him a teacher of the care of magical creatures in the third novel. When people insult Dumbledore in Hagrid's presence, he becomes quite angry. Even though Hagrid doesn't think much of the Dursleys in the first novel, when Uncle Vernon insults Dumbledore, Hagrid yells at him. But Vernon had finally gone too far. Hagrid seized his umbrella and whirled it over his head. Quote, "Never," he thundered, "insult Albus Dumbledore in front of me," end quote. And then proceeds to give Harry's cousin Dudley a pig's tail with the pink umbrella. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Igor Karkaroff is headmaster of Durmstrang and at Hogwarts with his students for the Triwizard Tournament. When Karkaroff's champion, Victor Crumb, is attacked, Karkaroff renews his complaint of unfair dealing at the tournament and spits at Dumbledore's feet. Hagrid's response is instantaneous. In one swift movement, Hagrid seized the front of Karkaroff's furs, lifted him into the air, and slammed him against a nearby tree. "Apologize," Hagrid snarled as Karkaroff gasped for breath. Hagrid's massive fist at his throat, his feet dangling midair, end quote. Dumbledore intervenes and orders Hagrid to stop and leave, taking Harry back to the castle. Hagrid begrudgingly does as he was told, but leaves Fang with Dumbledore and Karkaroff. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Harry, Ron, and Hermione learn that Aragog, the great spider Hagrid has had since he was at school at Hogwarts, is dying, and are baffled about how to comfort Hagrid, who is deeply upset. Quote, "Hermione patted Hagrid's shoulder, looking at a complete loss for anything to say. Harry knew how she felt. He had known Hagrid to present a vicious baby dragon with a teddy bear, seen him croom over giant scorpions, suckers, and stings. With this brutal giant of a half-brother. But this was perhaps the most incomprehensible of all his monster fantasies, the gigantic talking spider Aragog that dwelled deep in the Forbidden Forest, and which he and Ron had only narrowly escaped 4 years previously," end quote. Yet we have learned that Hagrid knows and cares for many creatures as he is as knowledgeable about unicorns and hippogriffs and thestrals. But it is the misunderstood creatures that get Hagrid's greatest respect, perhaps because of his own heritage as a half-giant. When Hagrid shows his class some of Hogwarts thestrals, one of the students says that they are very unlucky, to which Hagrid says, quote, No, that's just superstition, that is. They aren't unlucky. They're dead clever and useful," end quote. And it is lucky that the students of Harry's class have been introduced to thestrals, because that is how Harry, Ron, Hermione, Neville, and Ginny and Luna, all get to the Ministry of Magic in London in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Perhaps it is because Hagrid lives alone that he does his own baking and sewing. I knew I would get to food sometime. Though he certainly eats in the Great Hall with the other staff members and teachers a lot, he routinely has rock cakes, which we've already mentioned, and other things like treacle toffee, fruit cake, bath buns, beef casserole. Remember, Hermione finds a talon in the beef casserole and stops eating. To offer Harry, Ron, and Hermione when they come for tea. Hagrid darns his socks, although he could probably use his pink umbrella to mend them. Hagrid knits as well as darns. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Hagrid knits on the train to London with Harry, quote, knitting what looked like a canary yellow circus tent, end quote. Hagrid is also the one who hunts up the photographs of Harry's parents and puts them in an album, so Harry has at least that. Quote, "It seemed to be a handsome leather-colored book. Harry opened it curiously. It was full of wizard photographs, smiling and waving at him from every page were his mother and father," end quote. So in addition to mothering monstrous creatures, befriending Harry and his friends, Hagrid does things he enjoys, whether they're associated with being masculine or feminine. He cooks and sews and goes the extra mile to make a special keepsake for Harry. We could all use such a gigantic friend. Having grown up with the Muggle grown up in the Muggle world with his aunt and uncle and cousin, and not knowing anything about his parents' real identities or his own famous status in the wizarding world, Harry must learn everything about his world anew. Hagrid is Harry's first contact with the wizarding world, but he is much more than that. Hagrid is among the many individuals who mentor Harry, like Hermione, Ron, the Weasleys, Sirius, Lupin, Dumbledore, Dobby. Though Harry does not develop Hagrid's monster fixation, he does come to appreciate things that are misunderstood, ostracized, and looked down on in the wizarding world. Werewolves, house elves, giants, thestrals, among others. In knowing and being befriended by Hagrid, Harry learns not only fierceness, but also, and most importantly, compassion and tolerance. Harry, like Hagrid, finds Hogwarts to be his best home, the place where he has friends and can be himself. Harry is a better person for his contact with Hagrid. At the end of the Battle of Hogwarts, Voldemort is dead and his living Death Eaters in flight. Hogwarts still stands and will be rebuilt. Harry is free of the prophecy that has hung over since he was born, quote, "neither can live while the other survives," end quote. After all the mentoring Harry has received, he is strong enough to return the Elder Wand to Dumbledore's tomb and to live a withdrawn life, out of the spotlight with Ginny and their children. And Hagrid remains Harry's friend, who extends his friendship to Harry's children, having James and Albus for tea while they're at Hogwarts, and that's in the epilogue. So thank you.